Okay, pay no attention to the cat. Cat's going to sleep. Shh. Today, I want to talk to you about holiness, and particularly how to know how you're doing. Are you growing or are you not? It's one of those ones that's like hard to tell, right? Now, in that passage in Matthew, is it 6 or 7, somewhere about that? He talks about, many souls at the end of time will say, Lord, Lord, did we not preach in your name? Did we not heal the sick and work miracles in your name? Raise the dead and stuff? And Jesus will say, go away from me. I never knew you, you wicked lot. And they won't get into heaven. So the fruit that Jesus is talking about, the proof that we are in the vine and we're doing the life we're supposed to do, which means we're growing in holiness, folks. That means not so much that we're working miracles, but rather that we are doing something else. So you, me, how do we know? What are these fruit we're looking for? Well, first of all, virtue. Virtue is a strength on the inside, a strength of the heart, a habit of good. I have a habit of doing good things, and it's a real strength, and therefore it becomes really easy for me. Easier and easier. The stronger a virtue grows, it becomes increasingly easy for us to do, to choose, and to love the good. Ta-da! So there's many virtues. There's the theological virtues. There's the other virtues. My brain's gone blank. It's like when friends are walking over and I've got other friends there and I'm going to have to introduce them. Sometimes I panic and I forget everybody's name. Like literally, I almost forget my own name. I'm like, hi, why don't you introduce yourselves? I have to go. Anyway, there's lots of them, which they're just good things. And the more we do good things, the stronger we get, and then we call them virtues. Okay, so that's major what we're looking at, especially that we would love, that we would be faithful to God. So faith, hope, and love. Is there anything else? Any other proof of our virtue? Or a proof of real progress in God? I'm actually growing the way I should. I'm actually bearing the fruit I should be bearing. So virtue is definitely the number one thing to check for. See, how is it getting easier to follow God? Am I growing in this? The other thing I want to reference is an author I love, a Dominican called Father Garrigou Lagrange. Here's his wee book. This is the first half of his wee book. I've probably read from this before. The 3 Ages of the Interior Life, Volume 1. And in the back, he has a chapter with the amazing title of Retarded Souls. That's about that. By that he means someone who hasn't grown the way they should. They should be a full-grown, like spiritually, they should be a full-grown human at this point, but instead they're whatever, like someone who's physically, you could give an analogy, who's 35, but they're the size of a 3-year-old. Their growth was retarded, was restricted, and hasn't happened the way it should. So this happens too in the spiritual life. Someone should be like a fully grown spiritual adult, and they're not. They're a little baby. And that's not in the good sense. Quoting this other priest. And he looks at religious life, religious communities. And it's very interesting what he says. It's when Father Lalemant, he defines what does he mean by the fervent or the virtuous. We've already talked about virtue, but what about this fervent, which is the same group of people? He says, by fervent, I mean those who strive from day to day to make fresh progress in prayer, recollection, mortification, purity of conscience, and humility. That's it. That's it. That's the take home right there, folks. You can ask yourself really practically, and that's what I find is really helpful. So it's like, how do I become perfect? And how do I grow in holiness? It seems so big, right? It's so like, what can I do today to make that happen? Well, it's never going to happen today, so why would I bother? And we just get discouraged, with falling into sin and all sorts of things. Just it's difficult. But he makes it very, very simple. Are you striving just today to grow in prayer? And not that I'm going to try new things, but when I come to my prayer, Jesus, help me today, Jesus, to pray a little bit better. I want to love you and believe in you more in this prayer. I don't want to just slide into it and go, whatever, here we go again. The desire to grow in prayer every day, to grow in recollection. So that's not just in my prayer time, that's throughout my day. The sense of the presence of God that I seek to nurture. Is that something we're going after? We could be seeking to nurture our recollection, our bit of quietness of soul, and are seeking to remain in the presence of God throughout all of our activities. Mortification. Are we trying to grow every day in our mortification? That means putting to death the life of sin in us, so getting away from sin, repenting of that, going to confession and growing in the virtues that are opposed to those vices. But also mortification is in just making sacrifices to Jesus. I want to sacrifice and give up the things that, they're just meant to help me get to the goal. So there's things in my life that they're just tools to help me get to where I'm going. They're supposed to help me get to heaven. But instead I can stop and turn them into my goal. I can turn nice food into my goal, or people's opinions. And I could turn the pleasures of the flesh into my goal, and they're not. And everyone who stays and camps out there knows that they're not. And if you stay long enough and you get really into trouble with it, you definitely know it becomes hell, not just not heaven. So mortification, what we're talking about there is being able to say, do you know what? I'm not just going to walk away from that stuff and reduce it in my life and try to live virtuously, but I'm also going to offer sacrifices so that I'm really leaning into God, saying, God, I want the things of the Spirit today, no matter what day it is, feast day, fast day, normal day. I want the things of the Spirit. So what can I give up today, Lord, just to remind my soul that you are number one? Just to say to you again today, you are number one. And to say to my belly or my ego, you are not number one, Jesus is. That's why we want to be, do I have that attitude? And that might be the toughie, to grow every day in mortification. You might be like, grow in mortification. 0 multiplied by 2 is 0. So maybe I need to add a little 1 onto the how much mortification is going on in my life. Just something small, but something going in the right direction, guys. We need to get some momentum in goodness. And lastly, he says purity of conscience and humility. So to have a pure conscience that I'm really working, and this tips into what I already said, just the elimination of sin from my life, to take that seriously. That's the goal. It's not just a goal, that's our hurdle on the way, getting past and over serious sin, and then even minor sins, even venial sins, that it's possible, and then to really grow in my purity of conscience, to be avoiding anything that would distract me from God and his kingdom. And then the desire to grow daily in my humility. Is that something that's going on for you? Am I growing in my recognition of my ego and my pride? And Father Lallemant and Father Gary Gould-Lagrange, they say these are the things to watch. That's how to know. And if you've got some of that going on, if you do have it, do you know what, today, and even if it wasn't yesterday, it hasn't been that way, but just hearing this talk, do you know what, yeah, I really want that. That's attractive to me. I want to grow daily in prayer. And even if it's not attractive, ask him as you start to pray, Lord, help me to desire to pray better in this. I want to pray better in this time of prayer, to connect with you. I want to recollect more and to make sacrifices in mortifying my lower self so that my higher self and your presence in me can grow. I want to grow in purity of conscience. I want sin out of my life, and I really want to grow in humility, that I would know that I am not God and you are, and that I would surrender to you in all things. To want to grow in all these things, guys, that is what holiness primarily consists of, according to these two giants and according to my tiny little opinion. To be honest, I find that so encouraging, because those things are something, by the grace of God, we might be able to do a bit of. Miracles and healings and all that, don't know, but the other things you do know. And let's see what we can do today. God bless you. I hope that helps. Bye-bye.